Hello and welcome to From the BLN, the Burnley podcast, a third episode of the week for you guys this week, following on from the success of our accounts special on Wednesday with Kieran Maguire. We're coming back together to preview the Brighton game, to look a little bit at the accounts again, perhaps, and to try and dissect a couple of JJ Watt related news items in this week. A 7-a-side tournament that he's going to be skippering Burnley in the summer in the US. And of course, his appearance on Stick to Football, the Gary Neville podcast, video cast, call it what you will, vehicle, as well this week. So plenty to talk about. Unfortunately, our JJ Watt correspondent, Simon Evans, is busy messing about with some golf again. Apparently, there's something big happening in America, where there's a green jacket up for grabs. I mean, who the hell gives away a green jacket as a trophy? But no Simon Evans, but there is Chris Borden, Justin Connolly, Paul Woodhouse, and myself, Andrew Greaves, to dissect the week at Turf Moor. So let's start with the accounts. A massive thank you to everybody who's commented and interacted with us across social media, across various message boards, up the Clarets especially, on that special that we did. We felt it was worth getting Kieran on to look at the accounts, and I think it's worth kind of reflecting on that a little bit, Woody. I mean, we've been pretty blown away by some of the reaction to that particular episode and some of the stuff that Kieran Maguire said. And it kind of, as you know, creators, content creators, it does give us a bit of a boost. That's the kind of stuff people want, doesn't it?
Yes, I suppose it does. Although we didn't get into this to start talking footy finance, did we? You know,
we certainly didn't.
But it's been nice to see a good conversation around it, and longer may it continue. Well, not too long, should I say?
Not too long. We want a bit of stability, don't we?
We'd like to get it sorted
from a financial point of view. But I think, Justin, I mean, you were very impassioned in terms of your, you know, they are the custodians of this club, and that seems to be, you know, the messages I've got, and that seems to be kind of reflecting the mood of Burnley fans. And again, we are not just criticising ALK for the sake of it, are we? I think we've given credit for certain things, but, you know, I think the strength of feeling across the fan base on the back of the episode we did is that actually somebody needs to come out and say something. And, you know, we will keep pushing to see if we can get comment from the club on this kind of thing, won't we?
Of course we will, yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely right. It seems to me from what I've seen that the reaction to what we discussed on Wednesday seems to have been broadly positive. You know, most people seem to agree with us. I haven't seen anything whereby anybody's taken a great exception to any of the points that we made, apart from one, which was my suggestion that Burnley Football Club wasn't a money-making scheme. Whereby Chester Perry, I think, jumped in on the From the BLN on the Up the Clarets forum and suggested that, in his view, the original ownership group that took ownership of the club as ALK probably have made some money out of it, but that he can't prove that's true. And I think that fact sort of reinforces the point that we were making, that we just don't know enough about it to know what's going on for a start, but also to know what it all means and what it means to the club. And I think that darkness that shrouds all that stuff is unhealthy. It's unhealthy for the club and it's unhealthy for the fans, because as the big point we were making was that secrecy lends to, you know, people becoming suspicious and making up their own ideas about what the motives are, what's actually happening, what's really going on behind the scenes. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they need to say much, do they? It's not that we want, you know, all the details about what's going on. It's just it would be nice to hear them point us in the right direction. Let's put it that way. And I think that's all the fans really want. They want to know what they see on the horizon, what the future is, what their goals are, and where they plan to take us. And I don't think that's too much to ask. You know, we are very invested in it, you know, financially as well as time-wise and emotionally, and you know, and we can't escape it. We can't sell up and clear off, can we?
Yeah, definitely. And Chris, I did attempt at one point to try and work out how many directors you'll have seen at Burnley Football Club in your time at the Burnley Express. It's probably enough to fill an overpriced hospitality suite. Certainly, maybe a couple of hospitality boxes at the new 25% plus price range that they are for next season. But I mean, this kind of silence is not what we're used to, is it? I mean, we can criticise Mike Garlick, we can criticise Barry Kilby, we can criticise Frank Teasdale, we can criticise Ray Ingleby, but it is that secrecy and that lack of engaging with, the press, the fans, open forums, even AGMs. That's kind of pushing this mistrust and this kind of, cynicism when it comes to the current regime, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just laughing there. My abiding image of Ray Ingleby is speaking to him after winning at Scunthorpe to win promotion in 2000, and his opinion that it was better than sex. It just lived with me, that one, forever. It's just like, was it really, Ray? I don't know, but it's but no. You think about the accounts.
Yeah.
The accounts.
We don't know what kind of sex he's been having, though, do we?
I dread to think.
I think that's the point.
But the accounts usually came with, a few quotes from whoever's in charge at the time, be it Mike Garlick or Barry Kilby, etc. Just sort of highlighting the points that they were particularly pleased about or concerned about in it. And more often than not, it was front page news that week in the newspaper, not sneaked out on a website with no fanfare, no social media, no sort of tip to the press that the accounts are coming out. Will be coming out in a few hours or tomorrow or whatever. Give you advance notice, etc. It's just all cloak and dagger, isn't it? It adds to the smoke and mirrors and that sense that there is something to hide. There's something being hidden, and it's all. Like I say, we are looking at people like Chester Perry, and for people who know their way through a spreadsheet and through accounts to sort of go through it with a fine tooth comb. Kevin, it's it's disconcerting, and it needs someone to come out from the club and say, we're further ahead than we thought we were. We've taken a hit, or whichever way they want to look at it, really, and just put some meat on the bones. It's about time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one person who will have some knowledge of what is going on, and somebody who does, this week his appearance on Stick to Football. JJ Watt, he keeps getting named as kind of minority owner or joint owner. He doesn't actually appear in any of the accounts as a director or anything like that, which is fine. That's by the by. But it does feel weird that the only person we're hearing from, and somebody made this point to me earlier, that we probably found out a little bit more from JJ Watt and his appearance on Stick to Football than we have had from Alan Pace all season. And Woody, Alan Pace did pop his head up from his trench this week to wish Vincent Kompany happy birthday. And of course, we extend our greetings to the gaffer for his birthday this week. I won't get into the fact that he's only 38. I can't believe he's 2 years younger than me, but there we go. But it is that kind of, Alan Pace is being very selective, isn't he, with when he kind of publicly exposes himself, and it's usually to kind of wish somebody a happy birthday or something like that. And I realise the term publicly expose himself has caused a bit of a titter in Cleveland, but it says something when somebody who is a minority shareholder is giving us more information than the person who holding the purse strings and the money's going into.
Yeah, it's still fairly minimal information. It's only almost peripheral information, almost. And the one thing that I think we can give ALK and this new regime a lot of credit over is how JJ has become the face of New Burnley, the new brand that is Burnley, which is understandable considering what it is that they're trying to accomplish, which is create, obviously, buzz and awareness of Burnley Football Club in the US and further afield, and with younger fans in general, which I think overall they're doing a relatively good job of. It just seems to be speaking to the folks who go on week in, week out, year after year, season after season, good times, bad times, etc. They're not addressing those folk, and that's obviously the problem that we are talking about. And if they could just fit that little piece in, that'd be lovely. But all told, JJ, I think, has done a sterling job so far, both with the community piece, the outreach piece, and the celebrity piece. I think he's been a jolly decent asset, much to Simon's chagrin.
Yeah, I mean, we're free to talk about JJ Watt without generalismo. I think we've got to call him. We've had the kind of the thumb screws applied for referring to him as a Führer a couple of times, but Justin, I mean, away from we'll come on to his appearance on Stick to Football in a second, but again, that kind of brand exposure, and you're going to say, I don't think this is for me. I know you are, because we're all going to say this, and after that,
that's the point. It isn't for us.
Yeah, exactly. But they announced this week that him and his wife Kelia are both going to kind of head up rosters. Let's use the terms that are being used in these things.
Roster
to take part in a 7-a-side tournament, TST. The soccer tournament, which has £1 million winner takes all prize, but that we'll sit here and take the piss, and we'll sit here and go, oh, it's a load of rubbish, it's this, it's that, and we're 8 grumpy old men, and and if Simon were here, then Christ, I don't know how deep it would get. But just in this kind of thing, it does no harm to the club, does it? This 7-a-side is going to be a selection of ex-Burnley players, the odd celebrity. I imagine Jordan North's going to be there, JJ Watt, Kelia Watt's gonna, his wife, who's a former, women's football player, professional footballer. She's also going to take a squad there. It's going to be Burnley Football Club. It's out of season. It's a bit of fun. Yeah. There's not a lot to criticise, is there? Really, on that front.
Only that we haven't had a phone call yet. I mean, I know you're a regular player, so you could do a job for him. Yeah. No, I don't mind it at all. I mean, I think one of the problems we have now is that all the promotion of this kind of stuff is poured down the same channel, so it always ends up in our faces, doesn't it? When it's not necessarily us that they're talking to, it's JJ Watt fans in the US, isn't it, and in this country as well? Because presumably this thing will be accessible somewhere that you can watch it over here as well. But no, as Woody says, it's anything that broadens the fan base for Burnley Football Club in the UK, in the US, anywhere on the planet is good for the club, isn't it? It's got to be. So we can't complain about that. And I agree that he's doing a fantastic job. Whenever you see him speaking, now that he's taken Simon's advice and stopped talking about Benny and Hot all the time, he certainly comes across really well, and a lot of the things that he says about the club and about the town, he gets the tone, right, doesn't he? He seems to have tapped into it a little bit and has a little bit of an understanding of what it's all about. So yeah, what's the problem? Just I mean, this thing in this tournament, I'm not sure how. I mean, the official Burnley Twitter account seemed to be suggesting that Burnley Football Club was going to America to play in this tournament, and I don't think it's quite that, is it? I think they'll probably be wearing Burnley shirts, I would imagine. But as far as I can tell, that's going to be about the extent of it. But like you said, it's a bit of fun. It gets the name out there. It gets the brand out there. It gets people interested. Anybody who's interested in JJ Watt is going to hear about it and find out about it, and that I can't see any negatives in that. It's all good for us, isn't it?
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, it's on ESPN, I believe, so it's on a a major network over in the US. It's the first time there's been a women's tournament, and I think there's going to be 8 teams in the women's. There's going to be 48 teams in the men's in a kind of World Cup style group stage, round of 32. It's going to go on for about 6 or 7 days or so
6
across
weeks.
that. But, yeah, it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's not going to be, I think the initial thought was it's going to be the first team. My only complaint perhaps is why not take some of the women's team out there? We believe it's going to be a kind of select 11 that Keelia Watt is chosen from players she played with or against, which is fine. That's, they're going to play under the Burnley banner, and it's going to be, quite funny to see JJ Watt captain a Burnley side. But it is that kind of almost next stage of the development. I know Wrexham went out there last year because of, their ownership and a slight Burnley connection there with George Boyd. I don't remember George Boyd particularly being a Wrexham legend, but this side is going to be apparently.
He might have been there,
yeah. I think he played maybe half a dozen times or whatever, didn't he? But
it's a step up from the Soccer 6 that they used to have at Turf Moor, isn't it? With
Alistair Campbell,
X Factor reject, and I can
Carr
remember watching watching one of those one year when Alistair Campbell's team had we got a bit heated with the Wanted, whoever they are. And got in all the national papers the day after. But it's that got a bit of press. You can imagine what this'll get if you've got, say, one of the greatest NFL players of all time pulling on Claret and Blue, and his missus, who's obviously she's a professional herself. It's like I say, it would be nice if you could get a few of the women's first team who've made magnificent strides and have been, it's been fabulous. One of the great things ALK have done is obviously get them under the umbrella rather than just an offshoot and playing games at Turf Moor and things like that. They've done great things for the women's game. But I can't speak highly enough really. Watching JJ this morning, like Justin says, he gets it. The tone's right. I think quite self-deprecated as well about lifting, coming out with the championship trophy last year. Obviously, when you get asked to do something like that and you sort of like, well, I've only been here a few days, a few weeks, it's not really, but you sort of feel you have to do it as well, and I think he explained that situation very well, I thought. But it's going to be on ESPN, isn't it? So
ESPN, so national network there.
It's all good, and you can see in the replies to. I looked at one of his messages on Twitter before, and there's people in America who are going to tune in just to see him. It's all good, isn't it?
With it being 7, it's 7-a-side, isn't it?
7-a-side, yeah.
Yeah, so the goals will be a bit smaller. So if he plays in goal and crams himself into the goal frame, we've probably got a decent chance. I might put a few quid on us.
Well, I think
a birdie in goal.
Well, I think with a smaller goal, I'm suggesting for keeper, Mr. Pace himself.
Mr. Pace himself. Well, he's got form, hasn't he?
He played American football, didn't he? Yeah.
Did he play American football?
He played in. I think he played in Europe.
American football?
Played in Barcelona. I think when he was studying. When he first came, I was asked. When he first came, I was asked to ask him about his American football career, and off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think he played while he was studying in Barcelona. Off the top of my head, I'd have to go back into my notes to.
Let me just
look. But you look at this. He's built. He's built, isn't he? He's a solid fella.
He's only about 4'3", isn't he? In his stockings.
He has got some goalkeeping gloves, though. We've seen them, haven't we?
Good for running back.
Mission to Burnley. So
but they look like something Monty Don might wear on gardeners' world, though, don't they? They're a bit more like gardening gloves. You're knocking about in your garden. But how funny would it be if Alan Pace in goal, JJ Watt at centre half, and then just 5 other ex-Burnley players and/or Jordan Noah? It's got to be worth tuning in for, isn't it?
Well, it's North Carolina.
How far are you from North Carolina?
Far enough. About 8.5 hours. if I was driving. Yeah.
Mere details, would it?
Yeah,
Mere
exactly.
details.
I've driven it before, let's put it that way. So
tickets are available via the club's website, apparently. I'm not quite sure who them tickets are aimed at, but there we go. But Russell Ball with a special 7v7, the soccer tournament flag in the club shop, no doubt. Before Christmas comes, I'm sure when we win that will be added to the roster of achievements. But just moving on to his appearance on Stick to Football. I mean, I'm a big fan of that Stick to Football, I have to say. I know a few people on the message board have said there's too many people on it. They're talking about, they talk over the top of each other, but the dynamic of that, I always think is pretty good. You've got Neville, you've got Keane, you've got Wrighty, of course, ex-Burnley, but I was really, I was a bit I went into it a bit cynical, thinking a bit like Simon, more Benny and Ocktails, etc. But he does speak really well, for somebody who's not a soccer player, to use the parlance, he is somebody who clearly understands the game. And we found out a little bit of stuff, didn't we? I mean, I think we've been planning for both scenarios, relegation and survival. I don't think he's anything new, but Woody, I mean, again, they could have anybody on. They've had Rory McIlroy, they've had, Ronnie O'Sullivan, they've had, David Beckham, they've had lots of footballers. There's clearly some kind of pull there, isn't there? For, yes, I know he's a superstar ex-NFL player, but even that, it's, you're minority owner of Burnley. It's not a golden ticket to get onto these shows, is it? In the same way as when he was on Jimmy Fallon and all that lot. So there's clearly within the football community a feeling about Burnley that it's at the very least an interesting project, not to kind of use the P word again, but it almost validates some of the talk around what we're trying to become, doesn't it? By seeing him on a very, very popular platform like that.
Yes, it's elite tier, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's doing the rounds not just on soccer shows. It's because he is good value. He's like you say, he's extremely well spoken, irrespective of what sport he's talking to. He does the halftime stuff with regards to the NFL, and you can't be a mug doing that by any stretch. So he has those chops on him, and like you say, he does speak extremely well to football and to Burnley. The only bit that I saw, because I never watch podcasts or listen to the damn things if I can avoid it, because it's rambling bullshit, can't it, at the end of the day, was just that lot, the outtakes of Keane taking the piss out of Ian Wright, getting a little bit fanboy over him. And I thought that was quite entertaining because he gave it him for at least 2.5 minutes straight. And that was quite good. And you could see there that there was a genuine respect for him as, not just as a guy, but as a sporting character. And he's at least that one remotely bright shaft of light out of this couple of years.
Yeah, and some of the stuff he touched on, Justin, I mean, like I said, I thought the bit around the return on investment was quite interesting because we've kind of been trying to work out how much he's put in, what the arrangement is, etc., etc. And again, there's been plenty of talk on the forums this week. And, it sounds like, for him, looking at it as a bit of a passion project, if you will, and something that he feels he can get behind, and is under no illusions that he's not suddenly going to turn whatever his investment is into 40 or 50 million or 150 million for staying in the Premier League. So we get a bit of a glimpse into perhaps the kind of mindset of the people ALK and Alan Pace has brought in. Maybe he's in a minority there that actually, he sees it as something good for his brand to get behind. But it's quite pleasing that actually, he's not driven by, I've invested $5 million or $10 million and we want this return. A bit like Vincent Kompany, it sounds like he's here for the long run, come rain or shine, good days or bad days, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that was interesting, I thought, because I think it alludes a little bit to, I think what you were saying about how, the investment might for someone like him might be relatively small, but it keeps him interested, doesn't it? I mean, you find a lot of these top sports people after they've finished playing, they sort of try and remain involved in something. It's straight. It's a bit weird that he's ended up at Burnley. I don't know that. I don't know how the stars have aligned for him to end up there, but he seems to be quite invested in it, doesn't he? In a way that seems to be above and beyond the cash. I don't think he said he's not expecting any kind of return on it, is it? It's just that kind of involvement with something. It's almost as if he wants the buzz and the excitement of being invested in something that might produce those sort of sporting highs and lows that he's used to in his career. So I'm sure he could do that in his home country, and it's strange that he's tipped up over here, but it's not the first. They're not the first American owners in Premier League football, are they? So maybe they've seen what's happened with some of the other people who've invested over here and thought, that's a glamorous place to be. Let's get up in there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what Woody says. He's really good value when he's on these things, and I think he's about the only chance we Burnley would get to be on a show like that. He because he comes to that on their level, doesn't he? He's at that the same level as the other, arguably even higher in his own world. But he's an elite sportsman, as all the other people who are on the show are, or were. So yeah, and I think unusually, I don't think that is aimed at an American audience. I don't know how well known the other members of that panel are in the US, but that seems to be something that's going to perhaps impact in this country a little bit. Even for people who don't know who he is, and I think this is significant that by appearing with Roy Keane, by appearing with Ian Wright and Gary Neville, he gives us that exposure to the people who know who they are, who might not know who he is, and maybe investigate, what that's all about. And I think that's good exposure as well for us, even in this country. And like you say, he does come across well, and he has some good stories to tell, doesn't he?
Yeah, just checking how many views they've had. It's almost 300,000 views.
Yeah, it's not bad.
On the YouTube video, I've not had a chance to look at the little snippets. I mean, the snippet they put out yesterday as a teaser in terms of Roy Keane just ripping into the rest of them because they're all going 8,000 calories a day. He's going, but he's 20'6" or whatever. You know what I mean? And somebody points out, I've never seen Roy Keane that animated unless he's slagging off a Man United goalkeeper. But Chris, that kind of, there's clearly a respect there from these, absolute top level athletes. I mean, the guys and girls on Stick to Football have won pretty much everything there is to win several times over. It does kind of open a door, and you can see why ALK push JJ to the front, don't you? Because actually, Alan Pace, for all his kind of, efforts, and Stuart Hunt and everybody else, they were never gonna get onto a platform like that, were they? So whatever JJ Watt's arrangement with ALK is, as Justin says, it's the only way little old Burnley are ever going to get sat at that table, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it was quite sort of opened my eyes a bit to his involvement here. But he was basically saying that the level of finance in the NFL, if he'd have put in what he's put into Burnley, he wouldn't have had any say, any influence, even with his bearing in the game. With the multi-billion, that go into that. He basically saying he wanted to be invested into a football club, soccer, and by touting that, there's obviously he's got compatriots here. But he wanted to come to a club where he could have some say and some influence. And I think we're starting to see that, and he's sort of saying that he's the one who's been getting stuck into referees on social media because the chairman and the manager can't as much. And it's quite. He's very charismatic, isn't he? I watched watched him driving around before the Super Bowl with Neil from Sky, just chatting down the strip in Vegas, and wherever he shows his face in America, he's lauded, isn't he? People love him. People, they just recognize a proper sportsman, a proper athlete, and a thoroughly nice fella. But I say I walked past him. It's the first game of the season against City, and he was outside the 110 club. It's just one of the most surreal things I've ever seen. Him and his wife outside the 110 club, and quite happily, just posing for pictures, selfies, having a chat with whoever approached them. We've seen them at Justine's gaff at the Royal Diets, and it all seems it's not marketed. It's not it's very real. It's very honest, I think, and all power to him, really. But
yeah, absolutely. Let's turn our attention to Brighton, because there is a football match this week. You might not have realised from the chat of the last couple of podcasts, but we do play Brighton. It's an interesting one because they are a team who a lot of fans look to as almost the kind of exemplar club of the Premier League in terms of buying cheap and selling high and things like that. But I mean, for us, it's a chance to try and rebuild some momentum. We were very, very critical in Monday's debrief of the Everton game. But Woody, it is a chance to kind of, try and right some wrongs again. I know we kind of go into quite a lot of matches on the back of bad performances, but it is a bit of a chance, isn't it? In front of a home crowd. We've not seen many wins at Turf Moor. We were slightly disappointed at the draw with Wolves last time out at the Turf, but it is one of them games that presents an opportunity, isn't it?
They were our original turning point after what we did down at their place, which even though we were under the cosh for the majority of it, especially the second half, we repelled quite nicely. And I remember Mr. Trafford having a rather sterling game, etc. And I really don't see why we shouldn't be able to come with a very similar performance again, because maybe I think Brighton are probably one of those clubs we do slightly better than we probably should do against overall. So why the devil not?
Yeah. And Justin, I mean, we kind of chatted before the game, before the recording, I should say, tonight, saying kind of, well, look, shackles off a little bit. There's no chance of staying up, but the table is still interesting. Let's say, I mean, it is, it is literally a miracle needed to stay up, but the table is interesting, especially if teams do start to pick up wins in the bottom three, bottom four, bottom five, isn't it?
Well, it's like I said before we started recording. If you look at the table as it stands now, where if we can get 3 points against Brighton and Forest and Luton Town lose their game, Luton obviously are away at the Etihad, so I can't see much in that for them. We're 3 points behind both of them with more than 3 points to play for. So.
Yeah. And Forest to come, of course.
And Forest to come. So I'm not saying it's on. I'm not saying that it's probable, but it remains possible, doesn't it? That we can still make up some ground. I was listening to Vincent Kompany's press conference ahead of this game today, and he's very measured in what he says. He's not giving up, is he? And he can't say that it's unlikely. He's just focusing on the next game, as they all say, don't they? They always, that's the line that they always trot out. But I mean, he did make the point that I've got some sympathy with him, that we've been playing a lot better than the results suggested. The odd game aside, and he's absolutely right to say we've been. I know it's a bit of a sob story, but we have been unlucky. We've been unlucky with decisions. We've been unlucky with VAR. I mean, that goal, Everton's winner against us. I mean, that is the epitome of what we've seen, game after game after game. For that goal to go in rather than fly off somewhere else into the crowd, you see that maybe one in 100 times when the keeper's closed down like that. So we have been unlucky, and he was sort of saying, we really want to stay up because we really want to see if this team can progress as much again in the Premier League. And I'm with him on that. I really would like to see this team with the experience of this season under its belt go on and see what they can do in the Premier League. And if we do get relegated, I find it very difficult to see how we can hold this team together. If we stay up, that's a probability, I would say. So, I've still got the candle lit in the window. I'm still thinking that, a miracle. Vincent said it wouldn't be a miracle if we did stay up. I'm not sure I agree with him on that, but it's still not completely out of the question. Unlikely, yes, but and it starts tomorrow, doesn't it, with Brighton? And if we can get a result there, then there's a glimmer.
A glimmer, maybe. Chris. Maybe. A glimmer, maybe.
Not
a miracle, probably a miracle.
Well, they've only won 2 out of 9 games, and one of them's a dead rubber against Roma after they've been pumped in the Olympic Stadium over there. So, the form's not great. They're still sort of hovering in and around what may be a Conference League qualification, which would be, say, for a club like that to finish in Europe in twice, never mind in successive seasons, would be a phenomenal achievement. And I still take a bit of umbrage at, we got up there a year before them, and we hadn't had an owner that had pumped 300-400 million into the club over the we sort of got up there and stayed up there and got into Europe. We did all this before Brighton, but they're almost seen as the archetype, and it's like, well, yeah, just because Burnley got relegated, and we've come back, and I don't see why we're looking at that model to succeed. We're looking at trying to do what we've done previously ourselves, and Brentford have similar as well. There's they're a great example, and they are a really, really hospitable, welcoming football club, Brighton. As any supporter, there's always a message for the away fans, isn't there, on the concourse? Thanks for. They always put out exactly how many miles they've travelled, the away team today, and blah blah blah. They're a thoroughly well-run football club, but there's no reason why Burnley can't do what they've done themselves. So first things first, let's try and stay in this league, and beating them is eminently possible. But we've got to go out and do it. And we've sat here how many times this season saying, yeah, it's doable. And like Justin said, they have performed, better than certain results, but not over the piece, isn't there? There's always like a little period. Let's say that the amount of goals they've given away just before half time and things like that, silly decisions. As poor as the performance is last week, if O'Shea stays on the pitch and it's 11v11 for the last half hour, you never know, do you? But I've had some absolutely to have two sendings off in successive games, and neither were sendings off. Well, not in successive games, so in two out of three games. Sorry, it is beyond belief. Yeah. And you see it was the league below last night, the penalty given against Rotherham, and the standards of refereeing, it's just staggering at present. And but you never know, we might get one our way this week.
We certainly seem like we're due one, Woody, don't we? I mean, Vincent Kompany Thursday, fined £10,000, banned for 2 matches, 1 immediate, 1 suspended. He's not going to be on the touchline. They're keeping him away from the refereeing group on Saturday. But I mean, as much as we will accept that we've just not been good enough across the piece, Kompany admits as much, the disappointment at times. But there's a feeling that in the last kind of 6-7 games, we're probably owed 2 or 3 decisions going our way, aren't we? And it will be interesting come the end of the season when we tot up the points lost versus points won against refereeing decisions and where we finish in the table. For fans thinking that this next 6-7 games, final games of the season, there's not much to play for, there's still a hell of a lot riding on this, isn't there?
Of course there is, especially with Sheffield United going pretty much afterwards. This is like, and it's this thing about, what we have been doing or haven't been doing with regards to all of this kind of stuff and where we should be and what we shouldn't be. It's all about those fine margins, isn't it? That everybody always talks about. And Justin's exactly right. And I think Vinny's exactly right about it's, even though a lot of it's been kind of abject, we haven't, the performances when we have got a result haven't been that different from the ones when we haven't got a result, and maybe if it hadn't been for all the tinkering that we've seen, etc., that we may have been also slightly better off. But when we do the VAR league, when we do the VAR league at the end of the season, even if we do it now, we're not going down. It's as simple as that. If we take all those decisions, we won't be going down.
Yeah.
And that'll be the long and short of it.
Well, there's 2 points against Luton, isn't there, that we should have had for a start.
2 points against Forest.
Two against Forest, which takes points off them as well.
Of course, yeah.
And that's just a couple we're looking at. We've not got into the kind of red cards, like you say, Assignon at Chelsea and O'Shea at Everton. But hopefully, come Monday, I know I say this every time and I just jinx it, don't I? So nobody utter the words, there's never been a better time to play, insert team here. But that's it for this week's episode. Hopefully on Monday we will be celebrating, a positive result, let's say. Let's not kind of kid ourselves too much, but a positive result and positive results going for us elsewhere, maybe even a positive refereeing performance. But until Monday, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the match if you're at Turf Moor or you're watching from further afield. We'll be back on Monday with a debrief of the Brighton game. Until then, up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Watson. Go.